What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla stock, what you should be watching for going forward. I'm going to talk about what's going on with SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many other tickers based off the technicals, and also based off the news and events that are coming out for the week. I'm going to break down what the data and news are saying about Tesla stock as well, and talk about what my price prediction is for the stock moving forward. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Deposit $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just 4 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, so Tesla was down 6.06% for the day, once again taking a hit at the very end. And in my previous video, I told you guys that we're going to be watching many of these very important support zones on Tesla. I told you guys in the pre-market that Tesla was looking more bearish, and this thing continued to sell off. The important zone to watch for was around that 247 support, which is where the neckline was of the head and shoulders, and Tesla ended up breaking below that. As a result, Tesla managed to hold the next support around this 240 area, and if that breaks, then we have a gap fill all the way down into the mid 230s. And if that fails us, then Tesla has even more downside to 230 than potentially this next important level, which I will discuss in more detail later on. However, despite the potential downside that could come to Tesla, I released this video. This would be my penultimate video at the time of recording this, which is my second to last video. And basically, I told you guys that Tesla may drop more, but then I'm expecting a bounce by Friday. And let me explain what that means. So for the time being, yes, Tesla's looking bearish. It may continue to sell off more, but I'm still expecting a very nice bounce near the end of the week, especially on Friday, because it's going to be the last day, the last trading day before Tesla releases their deliveries data. And typically, historically, when Tesla has these very, very big days, such as deliveries or earnings or big events, we tend to see the share price run up right before. And as we're selling off right now, there's a very good chance it's going to bounce near the very end of the week, in my opinion, especially on Friday. So I will break this down in more details in just a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the data and the market real quick. So just so you guys know, for tomorrow, we have quite a bit of data coming out. In the morning, we have the durable goods data coming out. Just a couple of things. We also have some house prices data coming out, the consumer confidence reports, and just a couple of things like that. So expect some volatility right before the market opens at about 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern time, and every 30 minutes from 9 o'clock a.m. to about 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, we have some events coming out, some data that could cause some volatility. Now, this data is not as significant as CPI, but it's worth noting. We have the new home sales coming out at about 10 o'clock a.m. The market may react to this. Hopefully, this number is not too low. And we also have some more data coming out involving the Dallas Fed Services Index. We're going to get more economic data about what's going on with the economy from the services side. This is important for the markets, and the markets may react to this, so please be prepared. Once again, between 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern time to about 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, lots of data is coming out every 30 minutes. So please be ready for that. And finally, even though this data is coming out, it's not going to be as significant as another event, and that's going to be Jerome Powell speaking tomorrow. Powell's going to be speaking, not tomorrow, sorry, for Wednesday. Powell's going to be speaking on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. This is going to be very, very important, and what he says could affect the markets big time. He's going to be at an economic forum hosted by CNBC. What Powell says will move the markets, and he does have a tendency of being hawkish, at least as of recent. So just be careful with that. He's also going to be speaking on Thursday morning on the East Coast at about 2:30 a.m. Powell has another speech to give. This is going to affect the markets as well. So for Thursday, we're going to see Powell affect the markets as we have GDP numbers. And then for Friday, we have, the very important PCE data. But like I said before, Wednesday through Friday are going to be more volatile for the markets. Powell is going to be starting his speech when the market opens on Wednesday. But until then, we have some data coming out tomorrow morning, which could affect the markets. Now, to add on to this, we have some more very important information. We have Carnival reporting earnings. At least they already did when the market opened. For Tuesday, we have Manchester United, and we also have Jeffries reporting earnings. Then after that, we have Micron, BlackBerry, and a few others. Then for Thursday, we have Nike reporting earnings, which is going to be very important, at least the most important one for the week, alongside like Rite Aid, and a couple of other ones. Besides that, though, nothing else is too significant for earnings. And now to add on to this, we have some data for Tesla. Now, right now, if you compare Tesla to the QQQ, Tesla's price-price ratio is dropping, which shows that Tesla is gaining some relative weakness. Tesla is not as strong as what it used to be, and this is happening as a result of some negative news. If you look at the price comparison, Tesla is also underperforming compared to SPY. So either if you look at SPY or the QQQ, it doesn't matter. Tesla is underperforming compared to the market. And this is very pivotal because lots of news is triggering this. The news came out right over here that Goldman Sachs has downgraded Tesla. So did Barclays and Morgan Stanley and many other analysts. And then there was some news about other things. Now let's talk about what they actually did. Goldman Sachs downgraded Tesla from a buy to neutral. So now, they used to say you should be buying Tesla at these higher levels. Now they're saying just hold Tesla at the current levels. They're not saying that there's much upside coming for the short term. They changed their stance very recently this morning. DZ Bank is saying to sell your Tesla shares. They downgraded Tesla from a buy to a sell over the last couple of trading days. Morgan Stanley said that you should just be holding your Tesla shares. They reiterated that. Barclays also said that you're giving Tesla an equal weight rating, and you should be securing profits on the gains it made last week. So Barclays kind of started this off, and now many other banks, institutions, and analysts are following. We also saw Adam Jones say that you should be securing profits on Tesla. So the same thing once again. Now, many of these different banks and institutions are saying the same things at the same time. Could this be a coincidence, or could this be a combined effort to bring Tesla down for any particular reason? It's up to you to decide, but like I said before in my previous videos, this is a little bit suspicious in my eyes. Historically, Tesla tends to be green about 51% of the time on Tuesdays. We could have a very interesting day, but like I said, it's not as strong as what Mondays tend to be. And Monday was actually a weak day to start off the week for Tesla. Typically, Tesla's strong on Mondays. This week, it's not really like that. Tesla tends to be a lot stronger during the month of June. And that is a fact because for most of June, Tesla was pumping very hard. Since the beginning of June, Tesla was just pumping, and now it's starting to slow down, which is completely normal. But you also have to remember that Tesla is dropping not because of fundamental changes, but because of what these analysts are saying. So it's not really Tesla's fault that that's happening. July tends to be a weaker month for Tesla historically, but that's going to depend a lot on earnings and how Tesla's deliveries look. There's no guarantee about that for July. For the hourly seasonality, Tesla tends to do better during the second hour and also during the fourth hour of the trading day. So watch it carefully during those hours specifically. And finally, we had the seventh most shorted day of the week in the last 3 months for Tesla. That's a little significant because we started to see a lot of shorting right before many of these analysts happened to be saying some negative things about Tesla. The most shorted day of the week or of the last couple of months of the entire quarter for Tesla was just a couple of days ago. Less than a week ago, we saw over 66 million Tesla shares shorted. And then just a few days ago, we saw over 53.66 million Tesla shares shorted again. So lots of these shorts are piling into Tesla. Look at how the short interest is going up, more short volume on the stock. Very, very coincidental with lots of these bad pieces of news that happen to be coming out. Now, Tesla's also dropping on big volumes. That's not really a good sign. And that could be triggering more downside moving forward. On top of that, if you look at the short volume, it's starting to go up a bit. That tends to be a more bearish signal. But despite that, we had some good news that came out about Tesla's manufacturing efficiency moving forward, as that will continue to surge. This makes me talk more about its, or at least think more about its production apparatus and how on earth the Cybertruck is likely going to be another testament of how strong Tesla is. Because in the beginning, the Cybertruck and many of their other vehicles, the new ones especially, are going to have very slow production capabilities. And going forward, they're going to improve them, make them more efficient, and finally be able to scale it out quicker. But it's going to take a while, as Elon Musk said in his previous remarks. It's going to take some time, but that doesn't really change my view on Tesla because, like I said before, I'm still very confident in Tesla's history and their ability to continue to scale out. And I believe they have lots of surprises coming. I'm very, very excited for the company, regardless of what anyone tries to say about its production. And now, when it comes to Tesla's share price, however, for the short term, things are just not looking that great. All right, so we have this potential head and shoulders like pattern that's developing on the 4-hour time frame. We also have that gap all the way down to that like 235 area. If Tesla breaks below 440, it's going to likely fill the gap to 235 all the way down there. And if that breaks, because what typically happens is when we fill the gap, we see some algos start to like take over because that's acting as a magnet. We might see Tesla try to bounce off 235. Not a guarantee though. But if Tesla, fails to get a good balance, if it's a very small bounce, some buying pressure comes around that area and just starts trading sideways, it could eventually break below 235 and then test 230. And if that fails, I mean, the next move, and if you look at this from a technical lens, the gap would be very, very close. Not the gap, sorry. The start of this like entire formation, this entire distribution phase could come from this 222 area. So we could see Tesla sink all the way down to 222. Maybe it takes a few days, and by the time it actually happens, we see the 200 get very close to it. So I'm going to be watching 220 to 222 as a potential bottom. However, like I said in my previous video, I think Tesla's going to bounce later on during the week. I think Tesla has the potential to bounce maybe by Thursday or Friday and get a very, very nice sharp move to the upside once the end of the week comes because of the hype and anticipation of Tesla's deliveries. I'm pretty confident that's going to happen at the very end of the week. And I think there's a good chance Tesla is going to surprise a lot of people. Maybe a lot of shorts start to cover because if you look at Tesla, there's so much shorting going on. A lot of these shorts may start covering their positions near the very end of the week, right before deliveries, just to be safe. That could add to more upside potential for the stock, and it's just worth noting. But I'm not saying it's bouncing now. There's no true confirmation of it. It just sold off throughout the entire day. I'm going to be looking for a small bounce tomorrow, maybe a retest of like 245 or so. But then if Tesla comes all the way back down to 240, over the next few days, it might actually break below it. And we could see this thing in the 230s pretty quickly. Maybe 235 could come. If that fails us, then 230 could be tested. And if it breaks below 230, like I said, there could be a lot more downside. Now, if Tesla tries to pump, the next resistance is going to be around 242.5 followed by 245.51. And if that breaks, if it breaks above 245, we can see this thing fly to about the 250 resistance to 251.79. Then comes 252.5 followed by the 254 to 255 zone as resistance, and then it could get closer to like the higher 258s. But I don't really see it pumping that hard right now. It still looks more bearish on the 4-hour time frame. We will see where it opens tomorrow, but the odds do favor more downside looking at the current trend. Tesla is currently making lower highs and lower lows, and it broke below some major support, which is where the neckline was of this head and shoulders. That tells me the odds favor more downside, at least for the very short term, before a potential bounce at the end of the week. So watch these technicals very carefully. I'm going to be looking for a small bounce in the morning, followed by some more maybe like sideways or even downwards pressure. And then we're going to see what news comes out. If more of these analysts keep saying bad things about Tesla, they keep downgrading Tesla, it could drop even lower. So just be careful. I will inform you guys in the morning if anything comes up, and just be very mindful of all of this. In my opinion, many of them may be specifically and strategically trying to get Tesla to drop to start buying those dips and then pump it at the end of the week for a very, very nice profit. That could be part of their plan. Not guaranteeing anything. I'm just saying it's a possibility. Now, for SPY, this thing is looking more bearish on the 4-hour time frame, but we're going to be watching how it reacts to some major support zones. 429 to 430 is going to be very important for it. It needs to hold right over there. If it breaks below this area, it's going to see a lot of downside, and that's going to be the next major support to watch for. If this thing touches these levels, we're going to likely see lots of bulls defend these areas. They may even try to defend tomorrow. And I'm anticipating we might see the market try to gap up a little bit tomorrow and try to hold above like 432 and then react to the data in the morning before we see this thing continue to drop. But I'm going to be watching, could this thing hold above 438 to 429? If it breaks below it, there's going to be more downside all the way down to like 426 or so, potentially even to like the very low 420s, all the way down to like 422 area for the gap fill if 426 fails us. If it bounces, watch 432 as resistance, 433.44, 433.72 as resistance, which is the 1 hour, 250 EMAs. Then if we get above that, watch 434, then 435. I know these levels are very interesting. 435 is going to be specific. And then if we break above that, we could fly to 436.25 to 436.64. All are going to be some resistance levels. It's going to get very tight in the 434s and also the 436s. But for now, the trend looks more bearish, so the odds do favor it maybe getting very close to 430, and we'll see how it reacts. Does it bounce off 430, or does this thing end up sinking below it? If it sinks below it, you got to be very careful, okay? This entire 429 to 430 zone is going to be key. If anything, it looks like it's going to test it, and we will have to wait and see. For Nvda, It's pretty much just trading flat right now, not really making a major move. If it wants to turn bullish, it has to hold above the 50, above this 110 resistance. If it turns more bearish, it has to break below 107 and potentially test 105. I'm still kind of in the middle. It has this slight downwards trend to it. It is hovering below the 50 EMA, but we might get a back test of it again, this 110 area, before it continues to slide a bit. It is looking a little bit more bearish, but it is making some attempts to try to get above the 50. So I'm still in the middle with it, but I'm going to be careful nonetheless. Neo is trading very flat, not really doing much. I'm not going to really, regard this big move right here. This could be a glitch or something. It could be because of some news, but it doesn't matter. Don't worry too much about these candles that look like this. This happens like all the time, especially to Neo. But the thing about Neo is expect this thing to trade sideways for quite some time, and then uh, so far it's not really holding up that great. I'm anticipating some sideways price action, this thing trying to base around these lower levels before this thing starts to sink to 7.8 again. I think it's going to see some consolidation, then a bit of a drop to 7.8. Then it could bounce depending on how deliveries goes. For Netflix, it came down below 420, which is a bearish signal. If it continues to slide, it could come all the way down to 410 and potentially 404 and then 400. If it tries to push up, watch 416 and 419 as resistance, which happens to be where the 50 and 200 have to be on the 5-minute time frames. Netflix is looking a little weak right now, especially on the 4-hour time frame. Last time I checked it, it's still not giving us much strength. It's very close to oversold territory, but that doesn't matter too much. I could see this thing get closer to 410, if not lower, very soon. For the QQQ, I mean, this thing is, from a technical standpoint, looking a little weak. Watch 357.5 as support. If it bounces off this, watch this thing get closer to about 360. If that breaks, 358, then 360. If that breaks, then it could make its way closer to about 361.75, which is where our 50 EMA is. If it breaks above that, watch 363, potentially 364.69, then 366. If it breaks below 357.5, watch 355.5, 354. And if that fails, this, which is where the gap happens to be, it's going to come all the way down to 350. I think this thing is going to make an attempt to bounce, maybe get a back test of like 360, and then it starts slowing down afterwards. That's what I'm predicting. But just to be safe, always be open-minded. On the NASDAQ, you're going to be watching the 4-hour 50 EMA, which happens to be around 13,200. Watch that very carefully. The 4 hours looking more bearish, though. I believe this thing has a little more downside to come and may bounce a little bit, then just continue to slide. SPX looks like it may test this 50 EMA as well, or get very close to it. I could see a small bounce and then even more downside to come. The 4 hour is still looking more bearish, so just be careful on that. The SQQQ, is still holding up nicely, still pumping up as the QQQ is rising. We could get a back test to the 50, and this could mean that the Nasdaq may get a bounce in the morning and then start slowing down as time goes on, as this thing is still looking bullish. If it holds above the 50, this is going to be bullish for this thing because of the Nasdaq slowing down, and that tells me that there is still potential for it to happen. Now, for the VIX, I'm in the middle because the VIX did gap up. If it ends up coming down to fill this gap, that could mean that the market may bounce a little bit tomorrow. But then if it establishes a higher low, it could keep going, and eventually the market could continue to slide. The market could continue to slow down, basically. I'm in the middle with the VIX. If it keeps going, regardless of this gap, then we're going to be watching 15 as resistance, or at least the 50 EMA. If it gets above that, that's going to be another bullish signal for it, and that could suggest that the market may slow down even more. But that's going to depend a lot on other factors. The dollar is red, but it's trading sideways, not really telling us much, so I'm not too worried about it. There's lots of manipulation right now, which is what's ironic about the dollar. If Coinbase pushes up above 62, watch 64, then 66 as resistance, breaks 66, and this is going to fly to 70 plus. If it breaks below this 62 support, it's going to come all the way down to about 60 flat. And if 60 fails us, it's going to come down to 57.8. It's kind of stuck right now. You can see it like it tried to push up in the morning, came back down, but it managed to hold above the 5 EMA. The 5 EMA is at like 61.69, so it's very tight. Watch these levels carefully. It really depends on the market at this point. I'm not as confident on that. For Aapl, this is looking a little bit more bearish. It's still continuing to break down, at least on the 4 hour, but it's trying to base around 185. If it breaks below that, watch 184.32, then potentially 182.5, then 180. If it bounces off this, watch 185 as support, followed by 186 as resistance, 186.5, and 187.5 are some important zones, and then 188 flat is going to be another resistance. So if anything, it looks a little bit more bearish, but it depends on if Apple breaks below 185. I'm anticipating some sideways price action, maybe a small bounce off of this, but another retest later on. And I think it might break below it later on. There could still be some more downside because of that. Nvidia is still looking pretty weak right now, even during the after hours. And the 4-hour time frame is looking quite bearish. And it has a nice head and shoulders that's forming, starting to play out. And it could start to drag this thing even lower. If it breaks below 400, watch this thing hit 395. 390, and after that it could retest this entire support zone at 386 followed by 380. If it bounces, you're going to be watching resistance as 411. It's going to be the next major resistance. If 411 breaks, watch this thing at 416, 421 as the major resistance, and then after that it could make its way up to 425 followed by 428 and then 430 to 433. I believe this thing may try to bounce a little bit, retest like 411 or so, and then get a rejection, start slowing down a bit. It is looking a little bit more bearish, but I'm going to be open-minded and watching on a level-to-level basis depending on the news and other factors. For Google, it's looking a little bit more bearish, could retest 117. It is below the 200 EMA. If it remains below it, it's going to likely sink all the way down to the mid 110s. If it does remain below the 200, if it breaks above it, you're going to be watching resistance at 119, 120.07, this 122.84 area after that, and etc. But for now, it's looking a little bit more bearish as it's below the 200. So we're going to be watching 117.5 and potentially 115. For Amazon, it's looking a little weak, but it's going to be testing the 50 EMA. If it bounces off this, it could make its way back up to 130. If it fails to hold 126.7 at the 50, which is on the 4-hour time frame, we have a bearish cross on the PPO, which is going to give us more bearish confirmation. It's going to come all the way down to 125 and potentially 123.85. So just watch the 50. Let's see how it reacts to that. That's going to be important for tomorrow. For Meta, it's also trying to hold above the 50. If it holds the 50, it could try to bounce and make its way all the way back up to this like 285 area. If it breaks below the 50, it's going to come all the way down to 275, 272, 270, then 269 as supports. The 4 hours looking more bearish, so the odds favor this thing maybe bouncing a little bit, then getting a rejection. But I'm going to be watching it in the 50 EMA just to be safe. So with that said, guys, Tesla is looking a little weak right now, okay? It's not looking very strong, unfortunately, so I'm going to be very, very careful when looking at it. I want to keep this video a little bit shorter and kind of end it very close to here. Even though Tesla's sliding and sinking down, I could see this thing start retesting some of these important levels. There are more specific levels I could talk about more tomorrow, but basically if it breaks below 240, sorry about that, guys. If it breaks below 240, okay, you're going to be watching that gap all the way down into the mid 230s. If that fails us, watch 230 flat. If that fails us, the next important level for Tesla, if that fails us, then this thing has more downside to where that 222 level could come. Now, even though Tesla may drop more, don't forget it may bounce near the end of the week because of the fact that we have deliveries very soon and lots of hype and lots of like potential short covering at the end of the week. So watch these levels very carefully. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I will see you guys tomorrow during the pre-market. Get ready for the news, especially because the news has been very bearish for Tesla as of recent, and please be prepared for manipulation and other things like that. I thank you all so much for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. Tesla to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.